It's not a bat, it's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minutes!
Attention, citizens of fair Gotham, and welcome once again to Bat Minute Forever, the show whose rose is fully in bloom. I am messing up my microphone. It's falling over. I am one of your hosts, John Parker.
And I am the light that has shed... Oh, god damn, I messed up my own intro. Oh, shit.
I threw you off.
Oh, man. But yeah, I am here to shed light on the dark of every minute of Batman Forever, including these end credit minutes. It's me, another blooming rose. It's Niall McGowan.
You've left it a bit late to decide to illuminate these minutes.
Well, I would hope that we had been doing that for the last 120 episodes prior. But
you have indeed, you have. And we are joined by our final guest of the season. That's crazy, that's insane to me. But it's someone you know and love. It's the one and only Darren Husted.
Hello again,
hey.
Once more.
So again, would say sorry you have to get a credits minute again, Darren. But this is a pretty illustrious minute, though, because this is... Some people, would have loved to be able to talk about the thing that we have to talk about in this minute. So.
Yeah, and it's appropriate, because, as listeners may know, you hosted Prince track by track. Have you finished now? You haven't?
Oh.
Yes, I mean, I finished, and then I did, 7 Stevie Wonder albums to follow up. So you know music well. I've got an A-level, so...
There you go. And this is minute 121. Whew, good God. The minute starts with some acclaim. And it ends with us deep in an acclaimed tune, the aforementioned.
And it's really annoying, too, because it ends just before the title line. It's just, baby, I compare you to it. There you go.
We're going to talk about it. I don't care. We're going to talk about it multiple times. I'm not bothered.
Oh, yeah. We'll say multiple times. We only got one episode after this. But...
Yeah, but I don't care. I'll bring it up all next episode as well.
But one thing we do have is we finally get to the friggin' end of Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me. So I don't know, Darren, if you have any big feelings about U2. A lot of the guests we've had on since the song began have all been American, and they've just been like, U2, whatever. But you being a UK resident may have stronger feelings towards the band, because I think they're a bigger deal over here than they are over there.
I'm in a UK resident, and once Brexit goes through, an Irish citizen myself. So, I feel I will be able to. I don't really care about you two.
Oh god, wish anybody would care about you two. Just look, somebody gives a crap about them.
Nobody's a fan.
I know it's kind of sacrilege. There are people who are huge fans, particularly of that podcast about U2. That's a comedy podcast type thing. But the only thing I own by U2 is a single of Discotheque. That's literally the only thing I own of U2's. And that is it was a number one single for 1 week, and it's off their least successful album. and it's that's and I tend to do that with a lot of artists. I tend to the only singles I own by Kylie, mentioned in Street Fighter, are the ones that came off the album that was delayed because of the death of Princess Diana. I don't own any of the Kylie stuff outside of Some Kind of Bliss and so I tend to do this with most artists. The exception obviously being Prince, where I'll get into the artist at a point where they're basically doing terrible, and then when they get popular again. Yeah, when they get popular again, I'm like, no, I don't like these anymore. and then I'll try and go back to their back catalogue, and I'm like, no, I didn't really like anything from before this point. So the video for Discotheque. Saying that, I did like the song "Numb." That's the only other, and that doesn't have Bono singing.
That's why.
I feel like I should be launching a full-on documentary of just investigative. An investigative Netflix series of looking for people who actually like U2. Because I'm beginning to think now it's all a hoax. I think it's just their management has just got the best PR campaign ever. To be like, oh yeah, biggest band in the world. And you're like, really?
If you just keep saying it, people will believe it.
And they're just like cutting in footage from like Live Aid to like every single concert you see of them. It's just like, oh, it looks like there's like millions of people there. It's like, oh yeah, that's every gig, sure, yeah.
It's the greatest hoax in music history, greater than Milli Vanilli.
Yeah, so I mean, I remember liking that song. Again, I don't think that song, like, the song was kind of successful, but I think mostly because of like the animated video. And I certainly remember around this time I started going out to clubs and stuff, and they would play that song in the clubs, and I was like, oh, this is I mean, when I say clubs, I mean I'm talking things, places that mostly played like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and stuff like that. So like that kind of song fitted kind of within that aesthetic. But, other than that, I have no strong feelings about U2. And then, like I say, a couple of years later, they did like pop and discotheque. And I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. And then for me, they kind of fell off a cliff because they just did the exact same song. And maybe I've been spoiled by the fact that Bill Bailey does like a routine about The Edge.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
how he's got all the guitar effects, and then he like takes the guitar effects off and he's playing like some kind of like nursery rhyme.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe that's coloured my view of like U2. And obviously they felt that they had the balls, that they were big enough that the other two people who weren't famous could do the Mission Impossible thing, and like people would care about it. And it's like, okay, I mean, I'm sure people were like, who the hell is Larry Mullen Jr.?
Even I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, I can infer, but I didn't know that was his name.
Yeah, no, but because it was like, I think it was was it the first Mission Impossible where they did it might be in Mission Impossible 2, because I think that had kind of followed this template that was set by this film of having like a lot of artists do songs for the soundtrack.
The second one had a hell of a big soundtrack. I remember buying it at the time, mainly because, it's irrelevant, this, people. I liked Limp Bizkit, yes I did. So I bought it because they did the main song, and it had loads of other bands that were like new metal kind of things and whatnot.
Imagine John, like anyone seeing that CD in your house, you're just like, that purchase was era appropriate.
Most of my CDs are still from the early 2000s, because I stopped buying CDs quite early and switched to like downloads and things. So I could look over and stare at the soundtrack to End of Days.
But funnily enough, due to the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack, you definitely weren't downloading stuff illegally, because the leak of the Metallica song was the reason why Napster was sued.
That's true. Oh god, that was a big deal at the time.
Yeah.
I think that's almost exactly 20 years ago as we record this episode that happened.
People don't know when we're recording, so we can just say it's exactly to the day.
Yes, exactly.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's past, because I think by this point you've put episodes up that are past the date when that happened.
Damn it!
Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, it's all from around that time. But yeah, I mean, like I say, not got huge. It's not like I hate U2 or anything, or And I think some people don't like Bono for his kind of weird, like the fact that he has all these causes, but then at the same time he's got like 19 kids because he's like a devout Catholic and he literally won't put a condom on. So it's like. He's friends with the Pope, and he's friends with the Dalai Lama and all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay,
yeah,
but now U2 has finally come to an end, because we've been talking about these guys for like three whole episodes now, basically. We finally get to a song that friggin' everybody loves. We get the opening strains of Seal's "Kiss from a Rose," which is a song like, I don't know about you, Darren, like. For some reason, I always firmly associate this movie with the U2 single. And I've discovered this season that people who aren't me, like, I remember, still, Kiss from a Rose was in this movie, like, was the second single, but, like, people very firmly associate Kiss from a Rose is the Batman song. Like, that's what this movie is. Like, they say Batman Forever, they're like, oh yeah, Seal. Like, it goes hand in hand, which is just, I don't have that experience. I don't know about you.
I mean, I should reveal now that the Batman Forever is a film I've never seen. No, I'm kidding. I have seen the film. It's the only Batman film since 1989 that I have not seen at the cinema. Helped by the fact that last year I saw a double bill of Batman and Batman Returns at the cinema, so that crossed those two off. I was hoping actually this summer, if they had like a 25th anniversary like reissue, I could see it at the cinema and that would complete it, and then I'd have seen every single Batman film at the cinema since 1989.
I'm thinking that now though, because they are just re-releasing it. Because you go out like the other week, The Empire Strikes Back was the #1 in the U.S. box office because they're just re-releasing the stuff. Why not just friggin' throw on Batman Forever? It's like, 25th anniversary, go knock yourselves out.
I mean, they did it for the 30th anniversary of Batman, and then for some reason also threw Batman Returns in there. So I don't know why they couldn't do Forever like this year. So I it's the only one I've never seen at the cinema. But for that reason, I mean, the kind of the summer when this came out was just after I finished my A-levels, just before I went off to university. So it was effectively like a summer where I didn't have to do anything. Like I literally, it stretched out for 17 extremely long weeks, and it was like, just finding time during the day to kind of do stuff. Although at the time I didn't go to the cinema pretty much at all. But this was around the time that we had got like MTV and VH1 and for British viewers The Box, and I just remembered like this song being in particular on The Box.
I guess appropriate enough The Box, considering the main MacGuffin of the movie is called The Box.
And so it was like I remember seeing the second video, the one with all the Batman stuff in, just all the time. And so because I didn't see the film until a couple of years later, I might have even seen it when it came onto TV, which was like 98, 99, sometime around there. Maybe a little bit earlier because we had Sky Movies back in the day, so maybe I saw it on Sky Movies. So like this is what I this and the U2 video were the two things that I associated with this film. I didn't really associate anything else with this film other than these two songs.
That makes sense. And they're not until the credits, though.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like I would say also it was kind of equal. I wouldn't say like I particularly, like if you were to say to me Batman Forever, what's the song from that? I think now, simply because it's become like more used in popular culture, I would probably say Kiss from a Rose. But at the time, I probably would have said U2. But,
this song definitely does have a much grander legacy, because like this does pop up in other things, like most famously episode of Community where Jeff and Nadine are singing it.
I love that so much.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. And then wasn't it in the OJ show, the American Crime Story, the scene where Marcia Clark goes to get her hair fixed because the media have been like so critical of her appearance, and she goes and gets this really, like, she thinks it's going to be amazing hairdo, and it turns out it's like really hideous, like really severe perm. That's kind of remembered in infamy. So much so, even in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, like Tina Fey shows up with that same haircut just to be like, oh, it's the Marcia Clark haircut.
I know, I wouldn't have got that joke if I hadn't watched the American Crime Story.
Oh yeah. But like, I believe when she goes into the hairdresser's, Kiss from a Rose is blaring, and then when she shows up at the courtroom and she's like, oh, I'll see you guys in there, it starts up again, and then like one of the guys is just like, who the hell turned her into Rick James? Like, but I guess, but you get, so Kiss from a Rose will pop up in popular culture. People know the song. You don't get friggin' Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me popping up anywhere else in the world.
Which is a shame, actually, because not being a U2 fan or whatever, I will say I do quite like the song.
Oh yeah.
It's quite rocking. I enjoy it, but Kiss from a Rose is iconic to me.
Yeah.
Although what baffled me when I was looking into it, at least this research doesn't indicate it was it didn't get to #1 in the UK, did it? It did in the US and Australia.
Yeah, I think it got the #4 in the UK, and it got the #1 in the US, which is, I guess, maybe for like, because bigger country, they're like, oh, that's a bigger deal. We got the #1 there. That's what you want.
Oh, that is more important, to be fair. Because #1 in the US, especially back then when getting #1 was actually hard. It meant a lot more money than #1 here. But it's surprising because it was a big song. Maybe I was just the right age, so we all bought it because it was in the movie. It wasn't because we were fans of Seal.
Yeah.
Who now I do quite like. He's got a good voice and stuff. I've never sat and listened to the albums beginning to end. This was actually on his second album as well, wasn't it? Because I think we talked about it because he was doing that dedication to Joel Schumacher.
That's right.
And he'd released it before and it bombed.
Well, yes, and that's where I remember it from. When it came out, like when it was back out in like the summer of '95, I was like, wasn't this song out last year?
Yeah.
And I actually remember hearing it in like 94, and it didn't do, like, it got to number 20, which is not bad, and it was only there for a few weeks. But I was like, I distinctly remember that song because, you know, I feel like Seal is one of those artists who, you know, there was a danger that he was, you know, after doing, you know, Crazy, there was like a danger that he was just going to be a one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
And then he like kept releasing stuff, as, you know, one-hit wonders tend to do. And obviously sometimes they don't get any more hits. But with Seal, I think it was like, you know, this kind of flopped a little bit, but then it was like, oh, I guess he's still doing stuff. And then obviously, you know, Joel Schumacher, I think, heard it somewhere and was like, stick that on the soundtrack. It was like, okay.
It was a good move, that.
You know,
I'm surprised Seal went for it because he says here how he felt embarrassed by the song. This is before it came out on
I think
the soundtrack.
apparently he originally wrote it in 1987 and was like, "Oh, this is awful," and just threw it aside. And then I think it was like, and like doing the demos for the second album, he's like going to his producer, like, "I got this cassette here," and he was like, "Oh my god, we can use this." And like, well, if you say so.
Yeah. I've got a quote from him where he says, "To be honest, I was never really proud of it, though I like what Trevor did with the recording. He turned that tape from my corner into another 8 million record sales." It's like, oh, yeah, I like that. That's honest. Like, yeah, well, maybe money.
Yeah, it's like every single Seal concert is him just coming out and going, "All right, well, I'll play it, I guess." Just like, and then afterwards going, "What is wrong with you people? Why are you like this?"
It's crap.
I think it's funny as well because, like, you know, like, the era we grew up in, I'm sure you remember the kind of, like, I don't know what that thing was where you could get, like, albums through the post for, like, a cheap price.
Oh, like
yeah.
the Columbia Record Club and stuff like that.
Kind of, yeah, but I can't remember who ran it over here. But you know, it being like, you know, newspapers like on a Sunday and stuff.
Yeah.
And you'd see just like a list of all these albums. And I don't know about you, but you know, I would just go through and be like, oh, if somebody was insane enough to let me just go, which albums do you want? And you would always see the same kind of like albums over and over again. You're like, Dire Straits, Brother in Arms, who's still buying that? You know, like this far in. But I remember like the Seal album covers because the first one was like just the word Seal, but he's standing making the A, which is just a weird, like with this kind of day glow like trench coat type thing.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and I remember, and then the album that this comes off, which is, you know, called Seal as well, because I don't know why. There's a weird thing in the 80s and 90s where artists just kept calling all their albums the same thing. I blame Peter Gabriel. And the second one is just like that weird kind of like pose that he's in. Like, it's just like this kind of black body on like this white background with just the word Seal above it.
I remember that one the most because that's very striking visual.
Yeah, and it's like, so I remember that album being out and it, you know, kind of doing reasonably well. And then, you know, I've got to be honest, after that, it's like, you know, he married Heidi Klum and then, you know, aside from kind of like appearing in like, you know, Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Stop.
Oh, I was going to mention that. I thought it was clever.
Yeah. It's like, what has he, I mean, you know, he seems like a, you know, nice enough guy, you know, like, and I did see the tribute to Joel Schumacher as well. And I was like, oh, that's not, you know, it's a nice touch that like, he didn't kind of run from it. Like, he kind of acknowledged that that's, you know, Batman Forever essentially is a bit of a silly film, and the fact that like Kiss from a Rose is like associated with it, I mean, it's not quite as weird as like Prince doing an entire album about Batman, but it's kind of in that area where you're like, what is going? I mean, obviously things will get turned up a little bit more in the next film, but it's like just this idea, like there was a point like in the kind of the early 90s where there was a run of number ones over here. Where every single one came from like a film. Yeah. And sometimes it's like you wouldn't even realize they were from films. and then you'd see the video and you're like, "Oh, this is from like the Three Musketeers film. What's going on?" You know, obviously Bryan Adams was responsible for most of that dreck.
Oh god.
But it was just this weird run where I think there was something ridiculous like about 17 months where every single number one was on a soundtrack to a film somewhere. And it just kind of, and even some of them weren't really in the films. They were just literally just thrown onto a soundtrack.
90% of the time they weren't in the goddamn movie. Now you've mentioned some of that stuff though, it's given me the thought that I really wish Seal had just done an entire album that went with this like Prince did.
Yeah.
That would have been amazing. In fact, Seal, if you're listening, I know you are, can you please, just as a side project, write a whole album as if that was the whole point of it all along?
Well, that's the thing, though, because I know one of the featurettes is on DVD. That's hosted by Chris O'Donnell, because he is Batman Forever's Robert Wool, where he was just given the job of like, I'm doing all the promo stuff, I guess. He goes into the whole thing with like, Kiss from a Rose is about the relationship between Dr. Chase Meridian and, Batman, Bruce Wayne and stuff. And he's like, one of the lyrics is like, there used to be a graying tower, like all this kind of stuff. And he's like, as if that was what the song was written for, when we know, finally, it was never written with that intention.
Never, ever, ever.
And the thing is,
No.
we do know that, like, apparently Joel Schumacher did approach Seal about putting it in. We mentioned when the scene happened, like, the dinner date between Bruce and Chase, like, and then, the rose falls over and all that kind of stuff. And looking at the lyrics to the thing, and knowing that it's in Batman Forever, which is the movie where Robin shows up, it doesn't strike me as if it's supposed to be about Chase Meridian at all. Like, it's, because it's got these things like, there used to be a graying tower alone on the sea. You became the light on the dark side of me. And then, and then like, now that your rose is in bloom, a light hits the gloom on the gray and stuff like that. It's like, well, who do we know in this movie who wears red?
It's a love song for Robin.
Yeah, it's about Bruce and Dick Grayson. Like, maybe you can say they're hooking up romantically if you want, but in a homoerotic undertone. But it strikes me, if you just flat out said, this is about Robin coming into Batman's life. Because he is the light that, he's the brevity to Batman. Batman used to be a graying tower alone on the sea. Yeah. And then a light has come into his life. And there you go. Like, it works perfectly. So then if Joel was just like, I'm taking that out because this doesn't work for Chase Meridian at all, but it definitely works for these two.
And Robin's the only one still here. Next movie.
Yeah, 100%.
So, there you go. Like, I wrote that I didn't pick up on that at all, right? I love it. That's amazing. That's changed it all for me. But I think that the opening, although it's not written for Batman, it's quite Batman-esque in the imagery. Yeah. I think maybe that's why he thought it's going to work, the graying tower alone, light and dark, all these kind of themes, I can see why he thought, this kind of works, because, Batman he's in love. It fits in a weird way, if you make it fit in your head.
I mean, of course, Batman's catchphrase, of course, as well, is "Baby." That's his catchphrase, so it fits in perfectly.
He climbs up on a rooftop, stares into the night, and goes, "Baby."
That's his form of echolocation. He screeches out, "Baby," and then he can find his way through the dark. But that's one thing that's in that. The very nice tribute that Seal did on Instagram for Joel Schumacher. But he mentions as well that Joel directed the second video, because the original video is it's Seal standing in an alleyway, and it's very dull. It's it's him doing a photo shoot of a model or something, and it's just it's very gray and drab and stuff. But
which in itself is a film reference. I remember seeing that video a lot the summer before, and it's a reference to the film Blow Up. So it's already a film reference, and then it appears in a film. And then the video gets completely redirected by Joel Schumacher, and it's just Seal standing next to the bat signal, because obviously Joel Schumacher is not really a person who's into subtlety, so he's like, just throw the bat signal in.
Again too, because he's just a guy friggin' ripped abs. Seal, get that shirt, get it open. It's just you got no reason to have much like Chase Meridian didn't have any reason to be friggin' standing in a nightie next to the bat signal, freezing her ass off 40 stories above. Seal out there too, nipples rock hard, just absolutely freezing my ass off up here. But and the thing is, if you look on Wikipedia, it says it's done that way. Joel Schumacher directed this video for free, apparently, just to help Seal out, just to be this is a nice little gesture. And it mentions it's intercut with footage from Batman Forever, and it also mentions one shot from Batman Returns. And I've been through that video, and I cannot find where this shot from Batman Returns is. And I was really hoping, now that they said it, it was in the middle of it, it just cuts to a shot of there's Chase Meridian taking off her nightie, or there's a close up of her rubbing Batman's abs or whatever. And then it's just cuts to the Penguin biting that guy's nose, or just a shot of Max Shrek's charred corpse just pops up or something. And it's hey, I just threw that in for a laugh as well.
Oh, I bet some listeners are going to be like, these two are stupid. It's obvious where it is.
I've been through it a couple of times, and it's I don't know, maybe if I just can't see the the forest for the trees or something, but it's just really I don't see any. I've been through. We've been through Batman Returns minute by minute. I think I would recognize it if I saw it, but apparently I don't.
I couldn't find it. No, I did exactly the same thing. But in other Kiss from a Rose info, not info, discussion. Right, the chorus. The chorus always confused me, and still does. Because, he says, "Baby, I compare you to a kiss from a rose on the grey." What? When I was a kid, I always thought he said on the grave as well.
Yeah, that doesn't, because on the grave doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense.
Because your mind is just like, I guess it's a grave makes sense. You put rose on a grave. Yeah. That worked for Batman too. Friggin' the rose on the leaves roses on the friggin' pavement where his parents were shot in the first movie.
Exactly. And it brings up at the end of that bit, a light hits the gloom on the grey. What?
I'm assuming it's a kiss from a rose is like it's giving a bit of color to the grey. I guess. If you have to reach for something. But I think for an outro earlier in the season, I did the little kiss from a rose joke, and I put a kiss from a rose on the grey matter because Chase Meridian is a psychiatrist. But again, I don't think that's what Joel Schumacher was thinking. I'm thinking it was just like, oh, Batman's the grey. He's the guy of perpetual gloom. And I guess a kiss from a rose would be and again, too, it would have been so much better had, because of, every rose has its thorn, of course. A kiss from a rose would be a bit dangerous, would it not? Because it's got friggin' spikes on it. If Chase Meridian turned out to be a villain, like we all wanted this whole damn season.
Like we've said 50 times.
Yeah. If she turned out to be friggin' Poison Ivy, it would have been better. Because it would have made more sense. Like, oh, kiss from a... And they just put this song in Batman and Robin. It would have made more sense, quite frankly. But I guess Joel's just like, I can't hold it back anymore.
I need it.
It could have been maybe he had this idea of having this song in the movie way back when Poison Ivy was originally supposed to be in it. And he's like, oh yeah, that would work great, Chris. And then afterwards he's like, oh crap, I really want that song in it though. And I'll make sure.
I feel like both of you are forgetting that this is around the time that Fox's Alien Autopsy and the X-Files were both huge. So everybody referred to aliens as greys.
That's
Seems
another
obvious.
twist, yeah.
Seems obvious he's talking about an alien.
A kiss on the grey, on the grey's face.
That could be great that turned out to be true. Because I think I read an article that was like he's never told anyone what the true meaning behind the lyrics are, but he said it's about some kind of relationship. It's like if Seal was up banging aliens, and like he had some sort of freaking long-standing relationship where he's like, I should tell you, the reason me and Heidi broke up was because you found out about my secret alien lover.
Yeah, it's a bit like Communion all over again, that movie.
Oh man. If this song had been out in time for Communion, screw that Clapton soundtrack. Get that out of here.
I haven't got loads of notes after Kiss from a Rose, to be honest. I've got little bits.
I got a handful of credits here just to be like, look at a couple of these people. But you go first, John.
Well, one I had near the beginning was Don Baker, the effects supervisor. Because he did a bunch of movies in a row that I found interesting because they were all pretty huge, yet nobody really talks about them anymore. And it's funny. It's a specific period of time, I think, because you got Batman and Robin. He's back for that. And then you got Broken Arrow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Godzilla. Ghosts of Mars. All of there's a few more as well, but these movies were all huge.
Wait.
Broken Arrow
John
was
Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars.
What was that?
I said John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very specifically, John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars.
Not just any Ghosts of Mars. We've got to remember. Yeah.
And this guy did also work on Blade Runner, so he has done some proper things that have stood the test of time.
I was waiting for the Broken Arrow renaissance. Like, it just seems like maybe it's just because it's like, was that at like 97, 98? And it was like, we already got one big song, one big movie about a plane, okay? Like, Con Air is just taking up everybody's time. Nobody cares about your friggin' Broken Arrow, Slater, all right?
I mean, it feels like you're forgetting about Turbulence. There was Turbulence at the same time as Con Air. There was a whole... People were going crazy for planes.
Planes on the brain.
And then, when's Air Force One?
I think that was around the same time, too. Yeah, it was like 98.
97. Yeah, 97, 98. It's all roughly the same area.
Oh, man. That's weird. It's a weird, bizarre cultural zeitgeist to be like, hey, what if something dangerous happened when you're on a plane?
I also liked Composite Image Systems, who did the digital effects, because Well, they worked on some good stuff, but there's one that really applies to us now.
Oh.
So they did the digital effects on Chronicles of Riddick. Okay, not a great movie, but Constantine, Dante's Peak. That's another one of those nobody talked about.
Oh, yeah.
A bunch of Fast and Furious movies. The Matrix sequels. It specifies that on their official website, not the first one.
No.
The Simpsons movie had these people come in and help, which is bonkers.
Mm.
And that's the Me and You one. But most importantly, I can't leave off The Last Airbender. Everybody's favorite movie.
Yeah. I'm sure M. Night Shyamalan's probably like, you can leave that off. Just don't bring
I'm
it
making
up,
fun
please.
of it. I've never watched it.
I just know the woman's hair shaped like a penis. Like, that's the main thing. The further, even Avatar, the last Airbender of the series, I've not yet to get into. I've tried, and I'm sure it gets great, but it's one of those things like you'll have to get through like a season, and then it'll pick up. And it's just like there's too much TV at the minute. Like, there's too many things to watch. So it's like, I'm sure I'll get to it eventually, and I'm sure I'll love it when I do. But now, I remember it was like a month ago or so, it landed on Netflix, and it's like, it's here! You can just watch it anytime you want! It's like, okay, well, keep it there, and I'll get to it eventually. But it's Netflix, and they won't. Like, they'll get rid
It'll
of it.
disappear by the time you decide, I might give it a go.
That was totally what I was going to do with Mad Men. There's like, oh, Mad Men's on Netflix. That'll last forever. And like, nope, it's gone now. So I was like, well, hell, a year.
It's on Amazon Prime now. Mad Men is. They just moved it to Amazon Prime. So
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
what happened there with the...
All right, I'll
if you've
add
got-
it to my list over there, and then not watch it there either.
I think with Amazon Prime, if you download all the episodes, then they never go away. You've just got to have enough space to download all the episodes.
Yeah.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Oh, so even if they remove it, what if you downloaded it when it was available?
If you download it, and then I think you're offline. I mean, you'd have to double check. Then it won't remove it. But obviously, once you go online, it'll remove it. So you'd have to put it onto a device that you're not going to use online. Sounds like
I'm a
a weird way of
nerd.
doing
Everything of
things.
mine's connected all the time.
Yeah, that's the problem with me. Literally everything I'm logged into is all the same account. So as soon as I do something on one device, it's on the other devices. So it's a bit of a nightmare. I was going to say I think I sent it to Niall but not John, but I have the Empire for July 1995. It has the ultimate summer movie preview.
That's right.
It
The
boasts-
the first issue of Empire I ever read was that issue because Batman was on the front cover.
And did your brother have it?
I think it's not a great. Yeah, he had it. Yeah, but it's not a particularly great picture of Batman. It's very blatantly one of those like it's just behind the scenes. Like we're just doing a random photo shoot. So it's just like Kilmer kind of standing like, all right, and then just a little close up of his face, and there's no particular background. It's like
Niall, you're saying that right, but put yourself back then. You're a fan, eagerly awaiting the new Batman movie. You seeing that would be like, oh my god!
Oh, yeah.
The same way I was when I saw like The Force Awakens. It's like, oh.
I think it's like I do believe if you open it up to the segment with Batman Forever, then there's a splash of him standing next to the Batmobile from the opening of the movie, and that was like
That's correct.
yeah, like that was the okay, here we go. Now I've hit gold. If you're a 7-year-old who's just like, I am all about this now. This is my year.
I like that the ears from the cowl go over the Empire logo at the top as well. So they've kind of cut out his the top of his head so it goes over the top of the logo. Which having worked in graphic design in the mid to late 90s, that would have been extremely difficult to do. It would have took a long time. So they put some effort in. But yeah, I was going to tell you some of the other films that were previewed, because that was the first film preview. That's the start of the preview is Batman Forever. That's the first film that they've previewed. So that's clearly the big one. And then they're also talking about First Night, that awful Jerry Zucker boring film with, Richard Gere, whatever. There's Tommy Boy, Power Rangers, Billy Madison. These are all 2-word titles. I mean, this seems like 95 was like people were like, that's it, we only want 2-word titles. Of course, Judge Dredd came out a week after Batman Forever. What a summer it was.
That was the bizarre news last week that they're doing this Judge Dredd TV show is tearing on, and they're like both Carl Urban and Stallone will be in it. And it's like I don't think anyone was asking for the return of Stallone. Like,
Oh no, but I'm fascinated by that though.
I mean, I'll 100% watch it for sure. And like, I don't actually mind Stallone's Judge Dredd. It's not a good Judge Dredd movie, but it's a random sci-fi movie. It's pretty entertaining. It's actually
it's
great.
as good as any other of those sort of random sci-fi movies that would just come out every 5 minutes back then.
Yeah. Like, a lot of it's just like, there's a lot of great sets, there's a lot of great cool robots and stuff. So like, yeah, if this wasn't supposed to be Judge Dredd, if this was just Stallone as future cop, not Demolition Man future cop, but a different future cop, I'll be like, yeah, this is great.
Well, if it had a smaller budget, I think that was part of the problem, was the increased expectations of a crappy generic sci-fi movie coming out with that budget.
Yes. Well, Batman Forever was 100 million and Judge Dredd was 70 million, which, that's quite a lot. But then also we have Billy Madison, While You Were Sleeping, Under Siege 2, Dark Territory, which I did see at the cinema. I saw both While You Were Sleeping and Under Siege 2 at the cinema.
I remember While You Were Sleeping was huge. Wasn't it?
Oh, it was massive. That was like after obviously, Speed, that was the thing that kind of, that was the follow-up that Sandra Bullock did that kind of cemented her, I would say, as an A-lister, as they used to say in Variety.
Yeah, that's the era of Bill Pullman too. It was just like, back in the 90s, people loved Bill Pullman for whatever reason. So it's great.
Yeah, well, of course, the following year,
Yeah, Independence Day.
Independence Day.
The guy is
huge.
We'll never. Where's the Bill Pullman Renaissance? Like, that's what I want to know.
And then we also had Casper. Obviously, Braveheart was huge. This is more getting into September now. Crimson Tide, Species. That's what you're talking about when you're talking about like a low budget sci-fi film that kind of comes out of nowhere.
Hell yeah.
And makes a ton of money. Ben Kingsley and Michael Madsen together at last. Of course, Bridges of Madison County, don't know why that was big, but it was. I remember it being huge.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I think more than just the failure of Judge Dredd, like the talking point of the summer, of course, that year was Waterworld.
Oh, yeah.
Which was...
That's a film I just rewatched, Waterworld, last week. Hadn't seen it since I was... Guess what? I saw it when it came out in video, so I guess I would have been 8 or 9.
I bet it's fine, right?
Oh, no. I remembered boring the arse off me back then. And holy crap, it is a boring film. Like, it's just sitting through it. It's like, oh, it's so long. It keeps going and going and going. And it's just like, you just know that, like, originally the pitch was like, yeah, we just wanted to do a Mad Max ripoff on water. And
well, then it should be exciting and short.
Well, that's what you think. And it's just like, well, the thing is, I think we've mentioned on the show before, is like, well, at least when the Mad Max Minute people were here, like, as horrible a person he is in real life, Mel Gibson's a very charismatic screen presence. So him being like a monosyllabic, like, anti-hero is fine, because he has a charisma about him that you're like, oh yeah, I can watch this guy. Kevin Costner is the most bland man who's ever lived, ever. So him...
everyone loved him then.
Yeah, but him being like this, like, oh, he's a gruff, he like, surly anti-hero type, and it's like, oh, you can't tell whether he's a good or bad guy and all this kind of thing. It's like, God, oh my, I don't care. He just seems like an asshole. He seems like a boring asshole, and I don't want to watch him anymore. It was horrible. I hated every minute of it.
Oh God.
But
Waterworld Minute coming soon.
Although weirdly enough, one of the notes I had from this is that the computer graphics supervisor, Supinwich Juk Somsaman, I believe it's pronounced.
I saw that one. I didn't know how to pronounce it.
But they did work on Waterworld as well, as obviously in digital effects. They went on to do like work on Scooby-Doo and stuff. So the digital effects people who did Jim Carrey's head to get really warped and all that kind of crazy crap at the end, I guess made that hideous Scooby-Doo from the early 2000s as well. But the main thing is like Waterworld in CGI is like always the legend that Kevin Costner paid like a ridiculous amount of money for them to digitally thicken his hairline. Because he was so vain. He was just like,
just get a wig.
Well, I was watching it last week, and I was talking to people online, as you do when you're watching something and you're bored of watching. And it came up, and it's like I can only think. Apparently, Costner spent like 163 days making like on set for Waterworld, and there's not 1 minute of that movie where he's not damp. Like he's always soaked through. So if you're that uncomfortable and you're just soaked all the damn time, I guess like the idea of them putting a wig on you as well would be unbearable because you're already hot, you're already wet, so you're just like, oh Christ, and then you want to put a wig, graft a wig onto my head, that'd be a nightmare. So I'm guessing he was just like, screw it, I'll pay for them to just digitally thicken my hairline.
It can't
later
be
on.
much more money, right?
But that's one of much like Richard Gere's hamster story. That is one of the things that persists from the 90s. Of like, oh, Kevin Costner was such an asshole about his hairline back in the day that he paid a fortune to people to thicken it up.
At the end of the summer, we had Die Hard with a Vengeance, of course.
Classic.
Apollo 13 was, the big prestige picture of the summer, and then The Usual Suspects. Which I think it's funny because in Empire they're like unlikely to be a major box office draw. So it's like,
Then it ended up being massive.
okay, yeah. Well, I, not only that, but the thing I remember in Empire there were whole articles about Kaiser Soze for months after it came out. Like somebody in there really went to town.
I remember years later, they were still like, "Oh, who is Kaiser Soze?" It's like the film's not. I don't think it's trying to hide it.
Bloody
It tells you exactly who it is.
You're only ever supposed to assume that it's Kevin Spacey. Like, I don't know why people are going like, I think it might be Gabriel Byrne. Like, why would you think that? The movie's telling you who it is.
That's the whole point of the revelation, that he's not limping.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the Ultimate Summer Movie Preview, they kind of preview the stuff that's coming out the rest of the year, and they mention in passing Seven. And I like how they're like, this is quite funny because it says the plot. Cop buddies Pitt and Freeman are on the trail of a super psycho killer killing his victims by way of the 7 deadly sins.
It's a buddy cop film.
Yeah, but then they say the prospects, and it goes, the white hot Pitt is a James Dean for the 90s, and Freeman is no slouch either. Looks like a killer event, which I love kind of like 90s movie magazine kind of speak. This kind of weird, like, I don't know, it's just really funny. And then of course you've got Santa Claus, GoldenEye, Ace Ventura 2, Cutthroat Island, Johnny Mnemonic, 9 Months. Oh my god!
I realize how many blockbusters are out there. That seems like that's a they're not all classics, but that's like an embarrassment of riches in terms of movies. I mean,
I skipped over Pocahontas and Assassins and Mary Riley, which of course was a huge bomb, and of course the epic Cindy Crawford film Fair Game.
Oh, this is wild amount of movies.
But I've got one other interesting credit I got down here is for underwater director. Appropriate enough now we're talking about.
I wrote this one. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, Conrad Palmisano.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's a stuntman and director. He does use a couple of interesting little everything's connected because he's for a period was married to Irene Cara. Of course, everyone knows, what a feeling, the Flashdance lady who was also in Fame and all that kind of stuff. And Irene Cara was the star of Sparkle back in the 70s, and that was a movie written by Joel Schumacher. So there you go. But the thing is, Irene Cara and Conrad had divorced at this point, so I guess Joel was picking a side here, where he's like, oh, okay, well, I'm getting my buddy Conrad in to shoot this, but I hope you don't mind, Irene. I do kind of like the idea, too, that like underwater shootings, like that one shot way early in the movie after the helicopters crashed into the Statue of Liberty's face. There's that one shot of Batman. They're like, that was a free twofer. We took that from the underwater sequence for later, and we just paid him the one time. He'll never know. But yeah, Conrad's worked on a bunch of stuff. He is also an actor, so he's acted in Charlie's Angels. Of course, it ties in because Drew Barrymore would be in Charlie's Angels years later. He's in Airplane as religious zealot number 4, and I'm assuming because he's a stunt guy, that's when the captain's like walking through the airport, and all the people keep going over to try to give him stuff, and he ends up like having full-on karate fights with him and flipping him over his shoulders and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's got to be. He's got to be some of those people, at least one.
Yeah. Naked Gun, so again, tying in the Airplane, I guess. Under Siege, Tommy Lee Jones. So, and he's strike team leader in that. He's also in Red Dragon. And Holes, the Shia LaBeouf classic Holes.
Oh, the kids one.
Yeah. But he also did stunt work for Bosch. So, again, hello, Dave Pallas. Appropriate enough that you're here, Darren. Arrested Development. He worked on that as well.
Hey.
And I know you'll be excited to hear, John. He also worked on Jag. So.
Yes! We're going to do some Patreon episodes about Jag.
Should we just do a couple of Patreon episodes about Jag?
Why not? At this rate, it's seemingly our second project, like without us knowing.
That'd be great though. It's like, these guys kept saying they're going to go through all of Gotham, but instead they just did Jag and went through the entire show.
We'll get on lawyers to discuss the cases.
I mean, if you're talking about things being connected, of course, Jag spins off into NCIS, which spins off into NCIS LA, which of course stars
Chris O'Donnell. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is that true? Is NCIS a spin-off of Jag?
Yes, it is, yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, because it's naval crimes, isn't it? Despite the fact that half the time they don't seem to be naval crimes.
I just assumed it was just like a kind of similar concept. It was just like, they're all kind of doing it.
Here's the funny thing. Jag was cancelled by NBC. Then it was picked up for, I think, 1 or 2 seasons by CBS. And during those 1 or 2 seasons, that's when they did a backdoor pilot for NCIS. And then that spun off, obviously, into what was, for like a period of about 8 years, the highest rated TV show in history. Well, it's kind of weird because NBC were like, nah, we don't want this show. And then like CBS were like, okay, we're just going to keep spinning stuff off and never ever stop.
It's a more interesting concept, NCIS. At least you're seeing more of the investigation. I don't care about the courtroom.
Hey, John, when we're mid-season 4 of Jag, you're going to be freaking...
I do. I have a fondness for Jag. It's just because it was always on the telly. When I was a kid, it was just, I'd be off school sick or something. I'd be having my lunch. I'd be trying to keep something down. What's on the TV? Jag.
Yeah, I say like we should make that a Patreon, at least a goal or something. It's like, if we got a certain amount of people, we will go through Jag. But then I don't know, would people just for the joke of it to actually sit and listen to us talk about Jag? Let's find out.
I mean, it ran for 10 seasons. So
again, and then after that, we'll get to Gotham. Okay,
maybe.
But that's just like in the background here, John. Maybe it's like let's not commit to anything. So we also worked on Less Than Perfect, and I remember that being a big thing back in the day. The Running Woman, which is not a sequel to The Running Man, disappointingly enough. Free Willy, which of course starred Michael Madsen. Of course, Michael Madsen brought up several times this season. Co-star of Brierley Bishop, one of our guests, Michael Madsen. Jason Goes to Hell, classic. Streets of Fire, which is a great movie. Which, of course, had songs written by Jim Steinman, who fans from the get-go in this show might remember wrote that Batman musical way back in the day with the "Where Do You Get Those Wonderful Toys" song.
The greatest song of all time.
Yeah. And then he's did work for Cujo, The Jerk, and then obviously lined up for me perfectly a movie called Oh God, which has an exclamation point in the title, so it is apt for inclusion on I Do Declare. And I actually would look forward to covering it too, because it's the plot line is thus: when God appears to an assistant grocery manager as a good-natured old man, the Almighty selects him as his messenger for the modern world. And it stars John Denver, George Burns as God, Terry Garr, and Donald Pleasance. It was directed by Carl Reiner, so it's like that seems like that would actually be like a pretty good movie. So,
and then there's the sequels, of course. Oh God, Book 2, and Oh God, You Devil. That was George Burns' comeback. That was bizarrely enough.
Really? I thought. I know George Burns from is just that Simpsons where like Mr. Burns goes off when he's
Rosebud.
A kid with that family, and they're like, oh, his brother George, and it's like, oh, blum blum blum, oh, my son, right on that. That's all I know.
I just
George
watched that
Burns
recently.
from.
Yeah.
Believe me, this will be funny when I'm 80.
Yeah, that is my favorite episode. Like the Bobo episode of The Simpsons. I think like
it's up there for me. Yeah.
It's really I rewatched it again a couple of months back, and it's just like every single joke is fantastic. Like there's a good few Simpsons where every single joke is fantastic, but this is just like there's not a dud amongst the whole thing. It's astounding.
Yeah. Our Simpsons rewatch is about to get to the not bad, but the dip is here now. Like we just started season 11. So it's like hovering around.
You're thinking of making the switch to Futurama, or just like
at the time I did switch to Futurama.
I guess like I'm noted out for this minute. If you guys are, does anyone have anything else?
Indeed.
Okay.
No, I mean it was nice to revisit the summer of '95. you know, I was going to say it's been a while since I've watched like the whole of Batman Forever. Like it's probably been like a few years. I mean, when I bought the DVD, like when they reissued them on DVDs with like the, you know, they had like a 4-part behind the series like thing, didn't they? Where they broke it over like the DVDs.
Yeah.
So I think I already own Batman, so I only bought the Batman Returns DVD that had those things on. So I basically just got like a vanilla DVD of Batman, and I've got Batman Returns, and then that's where I called an end to it. I was like, I'm not gonna spend money on Batman Forever, unfortunately, at this point, or Batman and Robin. Although the funny thing, of course, is, you know, I mean, I guess, you know, the listeners won't know this, but on my wall I have a poster of the original 1989 Batman poster and also Batman and Robin next to each other. Those are the two posters that I have. So
I mean, Darren, like if you want to stand, I know you actually you did get a minute of actual footage for Batman Returns, but if you're prepared to stand vigil for end credits in Batman and Robin, you will get to talk about R. Kelly and Gotham City, the classic song he brought up for that. So
oh dear, there's so many good songs in this next movie, and then there's that.
Can we just do our own edits where we just put in our own song? We're just like, now we're talking about Len Steal My Sunshine, which was the bizarre spin-off single for...
Classic.
I want to spend most of my time talking about Smashing Pumpkins next season.
I have both Steal My Sunshine on CD single and also their follow-up song, Cryptic Souls Crew. Which the video for it is great. I mean, the video for... it goes without saying, Steal My Sunshine, classic video. Yeah. Particularly because you're like, oh, they're brother and sister. And the video for Cryptic Souls Crew is even better because it's the most 90s thing in the world. It's people snowboarding.
Yes.
You know, it's almost as good as Jamiroquai's Light Years, which also features people snowboarding. There was a point where someone was like, music video? Do you want to go to the Alps?
Hell yeah.
Sure, why not? Do some snowboarding.
The Chris O'Donnell and that vertical limit. People are going crazy for it.
It's the next big hit.
Yeah, everybody was snowboarding. Or at least playing computer games of snowboarding. That was
Cool Borders.
That sounds more like my tempo, was the computer game about snowboarding.
I've got one of those PlayStation Mini things, the classics, you know, and I tried playing Cool Borders 2 on it. That's not an easy game to control these days. It seemed it at the time.
Yeah, I had 1080 snowboarding on the N64.
Hey.
Which is, I think I actually, a friend of mine, I think he'd got it like on an emulator or something, and I was trying to, I've still got my N64, so I was like, oh, I've got 1080 snowboarding, and I put it in, and I think the battery in the car has died, so...
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it stopped working. So then I was like, oh, should I buy a new copy of 1080 Snowboard on the N64?
Yes.
And then I was like, what am I doing with my life? What's going on here? I should really, you know, I don't need to play a snowboarding game from 22 years ago that badly.
You do. I promise you do.
Oh. But yeah, I'm good to go.
Yes, on that bombshell, we'll let Darren go and purchase that game. So, would you like to tell people where you and your wonderful work and shows and whatnot can be found online?
Oh dear, I mean, I think the last couple of times I haven't listed everything, so I felt like as this is the end of the film, I will list everything. Let's go crazy. Starting with the Talking Cast, which is which was a minute by minute podcast about a talking cat, which is literally the worst film to talk about minute by minute because literally nothing happens. There's like 80% of that film that's just stock footage of unrelated climates.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah, the Cast Next Door, which of course was based on The Boy Next Door, the J-Lo classic, which is weird because like that was a few years ago, but I feel like J-Lo's had another resurgence since then with Hustlers. So, you know, always a good time to get into it. Of course, As If, you know, about Clueless, which I don't think anybody would disagree is a classic from the same time, from like summer of 95?
I have to give As If go nosing back into that because it's like, well, we'll be dealing a lot with Alicia Silverstone next year, so gonna need some Alicia trivia to mine.
I mean, As If, you know, after seeing Clueless and The Crush and The Babysitter and I'm trying to remember and the videos of Aerosmith that she was in, that is the reason why I saw Batman and Robin at the cinema was for Alicia Silverstone, not for any other reason. I was like, you know, this, like, I really wanted to see, but I mean, you know, obviously we'll talk about the regret next year. And then, of course, we've mentioned it. I've made a huge mistake. Arrested Development podcast, which I've recently finished. I say recently, just before lockdown.
Okay.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 episodes. I feel you two... were both of you on that?
Oh, yeah. It was me, Sean, and Scott Corelli did the episode. Yeah. An episode on that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been so long and so many podcasts since.
Well, plus this year feels like it's been 10.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say February was a nice decade. And then most recently I went through Minute by Minute, Social Minute, which is of course about social network. I'm a huge fan. Been a huge fan of David Fincher since 7, which is why in the middle of that I did 7 in 7. Which I think, Niall, you were on 7 in 7.
Yeah, I think I was on for Gluttony, I believe.
Yes, yeah. So, and then, obviously the big one is Prince Track by Track, almost 600 episodes in 2 years. I deviated a little bit towards the end, did some Stevie Wonder because, I think Stevie Wonder, his classic run from the end, from kind of like 71 to 76, I don't think anybody has matched it. Even Prince has matched it since. So, I thought I should talk about that. And Track by Track will be coming back, but in a slightly different format where other people are going to talk about albums and I'm not going to talk about albums. And so, there are some people who already kind of signed up to talk about specific albums. And so, they'll be kind of doing that.
That sounds good.
The one that's being recorded at the moment is Captain Beefheart. Track Mask Replica, so there's going to be 28 tracks of that. The host of that is, he's already recorded quite a few episodes, so that's going to be interesting. I think I heard that album like years ago, and then coming up soon, I didn't want to pressure people with the lockdown and everything. Knives Out Minute, going through Knives Out minute by minute, and I've put up an episode this was literally the silliest idea I ever had, and I was like, I don't know if anybody's going to go for this. But I'll give it a try. So I was like, how about we recreate the trailer? Like, people do the different voices, we'll recreate the trailer, and then I'll find the music for the trailer, and we'll do some sound effects, and I'll just do that as the first episode. So, we can... Inside baseball, so you can get it onto iTunes, you've got to have an episode to submit the feed. So I was like, let's just do that. And then... I don't know if people can hear it, but it's thundering outside.
Yeah.
And so I was like, we'll do that. And I thought maybe one or two people were like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then literally within a couple of hours, everyone had volunteered. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to do this now. So,
we might have to steal that idea for the next Batman.
I mean, I'm in that trailer. Like, I am there as Toni Collette. So,
so that's the only episode that's out for that. But then, obviously I'm not going to be a host or a guest for that. I'm just going to leave other people to do it. And then going back to my roots, because that's what I did with the first couple. And then, just have everybody record their episodes, at a pace that feels comfortable for them given the, current circumstances going on in the world. And then, kind of hope to put that out before the end of the year, I would say. So, that's pretty much everything. So if you search for any of those titles on either, I think, Twitter or, iTunes or whichever podcast app you use, then you should be able to find them all.
Hell yeah. Check all of those out, everybody. They're all great, and I'm now very excited for Knives Out Minute. I like that movie quite a lot. So yeah, check it out, and come and speak to us on Facebook. The usual Bat Minute Listeners Cave. Twitter, Bat Minute. Just type Bat Minute in. You'll find us. And check out the website. I never promote that. thebatminute.com. And buy a t-shirt. That's always very, very helpful because it goes in a little pot, which just basically pays for hosting fees. So we never have enough to buy equipment because we don't need equipment anyway. We've got what we need. So it ends up paying for all the ridiculous fees that come with podcasting that you don't think about.
They don't tell you that when you're signing up, and then all of a sudden you're like, "What do you mean it costs me money to make this show?" It's like, well, apparently it does.
Yes, it's not cheap at all. So we do it out of love. So every penny donated towards that helps, and you get something cool. As well. Including
hey, if you want to donate enough, you can get episode by episode coverage of Jag from me and John.
Coming soon.
Special guest star Darren Husted for 98% of the show as well.
So. Yeah. Well, Darren's going to host it. We're going to edit it.
Yeah,
I could live with that. That's the when I say 1,000 podcasts, that's me. I'm not a host on every single one of them, but it is me editing 1,000 episodes in the last 5 years.
That's worse.
So that's. I don't. You know what? I didn't mind it to start off with when it was just two effectively strangers from the internet talking about a subject and then me just putting it together, because that's kind of fun to be the first person to kind of hear the episode coming together. When it was 600 episodes of me hearing my own voice talking about Prince, that's when things got a little bit more dicey, because I was like, sick of hearing this guy talk about Prince.
Well, hopefully all of you aren't sick of it. Go and listen to the Prince Track by Track podcast. It's great. And we will see you again for one final forever? I was trying to think of something that rhymed. There was no rhyme or anything. We'll see you for one more episode. God damn it.
Next time, heroes with a half-minute. Bat-minute power. Batman is forever no more, as musical notes are made on the score, and the conclusion of the credits comes to the fore. But before the final 30 seconds of footage fade to black, what ultimate musings might our Minuteers have upon looking back? Find out Wednesday. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute!
Ba-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.